And 5, 4, 3. Welcome to PeaceKeeper Reaction. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for joining us today, you guys. It's a very special episode. We're going to be diving back into Sabaton, and I've been loving these animated story videos because I feel like I'm learning a little bit about history or herstory, I wanted to continue that with a story that's intrigued me ever since I heard about this in school, about the Christmas Truce, the day where, Christmas Day, I mean, it's not a day where that would be a truce, it's Christmas. If you live in a Western, Judeo-Christian country, you understand the feeling that a Christmas has. So I could see there being a truce, but other than that, I don't really know too much about this. So I thought we'd check out the animated story video and stay tuned after the reaction, and we'll read some comments from our previous Sabaton video, the Red Baron, and hear what you guys have to say. The Saboteurs or Sabaton Squad. I'm very excited. Stay tuned for that. But otherwise, let's dive right into this Sabaton Christmas Truce on PeaceKeeper.
It's the night of December the 24th, 1914, on the Western Front. The industrial might of the new 20th century has been focused into a war that has been going on for 5 months. Everyone thought it would be over by Christmas, but sadly such hopes have now died alongside the young men in the clinging mud and cold of the trenches. On the run-up to Christmas, Pope Benedict XV begged the warring governments to call a truce and asked that the guns may fall silent, at least upon the night the angels sang, but it was no use. In the trenches, sometimes just 30 meters apart, the men of both sides often shout insults to each other above the sounds of battle. On Christmas Eve, a cry comes over from the German side in broken English: "Tomorrow, you no shoot, we no shoot." The British and French are incredulous. Then along the trenches, there's a movement. But instead of seeing the sight of men going over the top, this time, pushed up above the top of the trenches, Christmas trees start to appear along the German lines, lit up by flickering candles. Is it a ruse? Could it be real? Could the regular soldiers on the front lines make a peace at Christmas when the church could not? On the wind, drifting across no man's land, there's a sound of hope and cheer as Christmas carols are sung. The gentle murmur becomes stronger and is picked up by more and more of the soldiers. As Christmas Eve becomes Christmas Day, the British and French join in too. As the morning draws, there's silence. In a farmhouse a short distance away from the front line is 18-year-old Scotsman Alfred Anderson. He vividly recalled that Christmas Day and said, "I remember the silence, the eerie sound of silence. Only the guards were on duty. We all went outside the farm buildings and just stood listening. And of course, thinking of people back home. All I'd heard for 2 months in the trenches was the hissing, cracking and whining of bullets in flight, machine gun fire and distant German voices. But there was a dead silence that morning, right across the land as far as you could see. We shouted, 'Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!'
Even though nobody felt merry.
Silence. Oh, I remember the silence. on a cold winter day. After many months on the battlefield, and we were used to the violence, then all the candles went silent, and the snow fell. Voices sang to me from no man's land. We are all friends. And today we're all brothers, tonight we're all friends. Our moment of peace in a war that never ends. Today we're all brothers, we drink and unite. Now Christmas has arrived and the snow turns the ground white. Hear carols from the trenches, we sing a holy night. Our guns lay to rest on wood snowflakes. Our Christmas in the trenches, our Christmas on the front, far from home. Madness, how I remember the sadness. We were hiding our tears in a foreign land where we faced our fears. We were soldiers, carried the war on our shoulders for our nations. Is that when we bury our friends? We were all friends. And today we're all brothers, tonight we're all friends. Our moment of peace in a war that never ends. Today we're all brothers, we drink and unite. Now Christmas has arrived and the snow turns the ground white. Hear carols from the trenches, we sing a holy night. Our guns lay to rest on wood snowflakes. Our Christmas in the trenches, our Christmas on the front, far from home. Turns the ground white. Our Christmas on the front line. We walk among our friends. We don't think about tomorrow. The battle will commence when we celebrate to Christmas. We thought about our friends, those who never made it home when the battle had commenced.
There were many matches along the lines that day, some with proper footballs, some with bully beef cans, some were disorganised scrambles for the ball. Robert Graves reported that in his match, the Germans won 3-2. The Argyll and Southern Highlanders reported their match ended 4-1 to Scotland. An estimated 100,000 men took part in the Christmas Truce. As the men moved back to their trenches, Captain Charles Stockwell took it upon himself to fire 3 shots skyward. He raised a flag upon which was written Merry Christmas. His German opposite raised a flag that read, Thank you. The two men then stood on the ramparts and saluted each other. Alfred Anderson, the young Scotsman, survived the war and lived to the age of 109. He said of the end of the truce, the silence ended in the early afternoon. It was a short peace in a terrible war. But one of the most remarkable quotes comes from a young soldier who, despite being away from his family for the first time, said of the events on that day, I wouldn't have missed it for the most gorgeous Christmas dinner in England. A Merry Christmas from everyone at Yarn Hub, and the final words go to the members of Sabaton.
Merry Christmas!
All right. It's a Christmas Truce by Sabaton on PeaceKeeper, and what an interesting video, and what an interesting thing to think about. You know, a lot of these guys, probably most of them, if not all of them, their first trip overseas was to fight a war, you know, and it just goes to show you this Christmas truce, that these people can become brothers and realize, oh, we're not killing your people because we want to. We're killing your people because we have to. In another situation, if you ever go to like a place like backpackers, it's like a hostel, and you spend time and you have a bunch of people from a bunch of different countries, all like drinking and having fun. I used to do this all the time, but it's such a beautiful thing to think about it, where everyone comes from and their background and the things that make them unique about being from that place. To me, it's the most beautiful thing that you can do, is spend time with people from different countries. You know what I mean? It's just, it opens your eyes so much to the world. And I was lucky enough to have an experience like that when I first moved to Toronto to go to school. I moved there in the summer, and the dorms that were for students in the summer were rented out for travelers or and stuff. It was kind of like a hostel sort of deal. But I lived in a house with a bunch of people from the Netherlands, Ireland, England, and it just like opened my mind to everything. I think it's one of the things that makes me so curious about doing these destination videos that I do about Japan and Finland and stuff. I just love soaking up other cultures and stuff. So the fact that these guys, they go over there, they're there to kill, but they realize on this Christmas truce that they all, they're not so different. You know what I mean? And that should like end a war when you see those similarities. Like, what are we have the power, we're the grunts, the soldiers, we're the ones who could stop this. And you know, I that's why I get so bummed out when you know, there's a conflict going now in Russia and Ukraine, and a lot of people get really pumped up about like Russian defeats and Russian deaths and stuff, and you know, oh, they just took out this many or whatever, you know what I mean? Oh, we're gonna win, Ukraine's gonna win. But like, what is winning a war? You know what I mean? I could never cheer for an enemy loss if I was on this side of whatever, but because I know those people don't want to be doing what they're doing, and their deaths are very sad too. So anytime, I'd never think that anything in a war is a time to celebrate. And you know, maybe I'm just so anti-war, and I've so dug into my beliefs that maybe I'm crazy. You know what I mean? But I just don't. I never think that any death in war is something to cheer or anything like that. And this kind of shows that to me, like. You know, it's so crazy. We should always be talking about peace in these situations. We should always be talking diplomacy, and I feel that gets lost a lot. So, but anyways, That was beautiful, a beautiful video, beautiful song, beautiful story. But let's read a few comments from our previous Sabaton video, the Red Baron. So this comes from Fenris Ulfer, who says the Red Baron is so popular that even U.S. Air Force F-4 and F-111 crews during the Vietnam War made custom crew patches with Snoopy and the Red Baron. Did you know that Sabaton did a version of In Flanders Field, which was written by Canadian Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae? Anyway, I love your Donnie Darko Guitar Bunny. Yeah, that's the Donnie Darko, and here's Donnie Darko's head, in fact, that I could put on it as well, but I prefer the bunny. But yeah, we actually did that already. If you go back and check our previous videos, you'll see that. Fenris, and thank you for the comment. Oh, Bud, he's coming over here. He's a Love Bites fan, I think. Says, Manfred Captain Baron von Richthofen killed in action on April 21st, 1918. He was buried with full military honors by the Allies. He is considered the aces of the First World War. 80 air combat victories. Richthofen was awarded the highest military order of Prussia, the Pour la Merte. Amy Goodson, more like bad son, if you ask me. Nathan, a popular alcoholic drink in Sweden, Bronvin, a schnapps liqueur distilled from potatoes or grains. It dates back to the 14th century. Okay, I'm going to have to investigate that further. Akavit is a drink made from Bronvin and spiced with caraway or dill. Or you can go with Absolute vodkas. Yeah, Absolute vodka is Swedish. Or Svedka vodka. The most popular beer in Sweden is Falcon. Okay, is that a Swedish beer? I'll have to investigate this, okay? So, thank you, Amy. Drigger Dronzer says, Richthofen saw cousin be engaged by the Sopwith, and probably due to his injuries, including a bullet to his head that couldn't be removed, he disregarded his own rule not to fly solo. But that's not all. He was suffering from PTSD and depression. He had become reclusive, cold, and uncaring after his head injury. Probably a lymphatic injury was messed with his emotions and self-preservation. He was about to be pulled away from service by the Kaiser and knew he was doing flying combat missions. He decided to go out a hero rather than spend his career giving morale speeches. Interesting. Hans Reftel says you should drink snaps, maybe. O.P. Anderson Aquavit, Skafran Skjervig. All right. Megadog, what's up, Megadog? Says something different. Try versions of Atlantis Pirates will return. Live official. All right. Well, we'll check out what that is. But anyways, thank you so much for leaving your comments, watching the videos. I love you guys. And if you want to get your requests on the show, you can go to patreon.com/Peacekeeper Reaction. And for Peacekeeper, I'm Nathan. Play safe. I can put my arm back on.